Have you ever paused to consider how the way you end your day can profoundly shape the spiritual path you walk? The simple act of praying before sleep is not just a mindless ritual. It is an invitation to enter into a sacred, transformative moment. It is an opportunity to surrender your burdens to God, to let go of the weight of the day, and to allow His peace to wash over you like a gentle, restorative balm. As the psalmist writes in Psalm 4:8, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." In this verse, we are reminded that prayer before sleep is not just about finding physical rest. It is a deep spiritual renewal under the protective wings of God. It's in these quiet moments that we allow ourselves to release the turmoil and fears of the day, knowing that God's presence can calm the storm within us. As night falls and the world begins to quiet down, it's easy to feel the weight of accumulated worries pressing on our hearts. All those unresolved tasks, unspoken words, and lingering doubts seem to intensify in the stillness. But it is precisely in these moments when the darkness feels heavier that God beckons us to lay everything before Him. It is an invitation to surrender, to release all that we were never meant to carry alone. The act of praying before bed is not merely an obligation or tradition. It's a sacred opportunity to rest in God's presence, knowing that He can carry our burdens better than we ever could. Jesus, in His infinite love, invites us to draw near with our anxieties, fears, and struggles, as He promises rest for our souls. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," He says in Matthew 11:28. These words remind us that His peace is not only meant for times of trouble, but for every moment when we feel overwhelmed and in need of refuge. One woman shared a deeply personal story of how this practice of praying before bed transformed her nights. For years she would lie awake, her mind racing with a never-ending list of concerns. She replayed conversations, worried over mistakes, and imagined worst-case scenarios that never came to pass. Her thoughts spiraled out of control, robbing her of sleep and her peace. Then one evening, a friend gently encouraged her to pray before bed, to offer each of her racing thoughts up to God. It was hard at first. The words didn't come easily and her mind was relentless, but she made the effort to say, "Lord, this is how I feel. These are my worries, my fears, my thoughts. I surrender them to you." Over time, something incredible happened. Her circumstances didn't change overnight, but she found that her ability to rest in God's presence, to allow His peace to fill the space of her heart, deepened. It wasn't perfection, but it was progress. Each prayer before bed became a chance to lay down her burdens and find refuge in God's embrace. Praying before sleep is an act of profound trust. It's an acknowledgement that we are not in control of everything, but we serve a God who is. In Psalm 55:22, we are told to cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous fall. These words are a powerful reminder that God is not only willing, but deeply committed to holding us up while He bears the weight of our worries. In a world that tells us we must constantly strive, prove ourselves, and bear our burdens, surrendering them to God is an act of faith and trust. It is an admission that we are finite and He is infinite. It's a humbling reminder that we don't have to walk this path alone, and that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. When you close your eyes at night, praying and entrusting everything to Him, you are declaring that His peace is more powerful than your fears, and His love is enough to carry you through. In today's fast-paced world where hustle and busyness are often glorified, rest is seen as a luxury rather than a necessity. Yet God designed rest not only to renew our physical energy, but also to remind us of our dependence on Him. In Psalm 4:8, the psalmist declares, "I will lie down and sleep in peace, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." The peace that we are promised does not come from the day's accomplishments, nor our plans for tomorrow. It comes from knowing that we are held in the loving, unshakable embrace of the Almighty God. For many, this peace seems elusive, especially when the weight of the world feels unbearable. But that peace is real, and it is available to us if we will surrender our hearts and minds to Him. One man shared how this truth transformed his perspective. For months he struggled with feelings of failure in his business. Each night as he lay awake, negative thoughts and anxiety about the future clouded his mind. His sleep was restless and his physical health began to decline. But one evening as he read through Psalm 4:8, he felt as if God was speaking directly to him. He decided to claim this verse as a personal promise. That night before lying down, he knelt and prayed, "Lord, I don't have the answers, but I know you do. I surrender my fears, my business, and my future to you. Give me your peace." While his circumstances didn't change instantly, something inside him shifted. A sense of calm began to fill his heart. And the rest he experienced that night was unlike anything he had felt in months. That peace didn't just heal his body, it gave him the clarity to make better decisions and the strength to move forward in faith. The beauty of prayer before sleep is that it doesn't need to be complicated. It is simply a moment to speak honestly with God, to share your joys, your burdens, and your struggles. In 1 Peter 5:7, we are reminded, "Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." This is a deeply liberating practice. It frees us from the weight of worrying about tomorrow, knowing that God is already at work in our lives, even while we rest. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, and that God is intimately aware of our deepest fears and needs. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus Himself showed us the power of prayer in times of immense emotional strain. Facing His impending crucifixion, He withdrew to pray, seeking comfort and strength from His Father. In Luke 22:42, He prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." This powerful moment reminds us that prayer does not always take away the challenges or the pain, but it strengthens us to face them with grace and peace. And just as an angel from heaven appeared to strengthen Jesus, so too does God send His comfort to us when we come to Him in prayer. When you pray before sleep, you open a space for God to renew your spirit, refresh your soul, and give you the strength you need to face another day. One mother shared how this nightly habit transformed not only her peace, but that of her entire family. Each evening, before going to bed, she would gather her children, and together they would pray, surrendering their day's struggles and triumphs to God. This simple act of faith and gratitude became a source of strength for their family, reminding them that amid every challenge, God's presence was their constant companion. As they lay down to sleep, they were united not just in their love for one another, but in their trust in God's provision and care. As you make this practice of nightly prayer a part of your routine, you will begin to notice a subtle yet profound shift in your perspective. The worries that once kept you awake become less daunting when you place them in God's hands. The anxieties that once consumed your thoughts begin to dissipate as you remember that He is in control. And the peace that settles over your heart at the end of each day is not just a temporary respite, but a lasting assurance that you are never alone. God's peace, given freely in prayer, transforms not only your nights, but how you approach the challenges and joys of each new day. Praying before sleep is not merely a spiritual ritual. It is a profound declaration of trust. It is a declaration that you are placing your confidence in the arms of a God who never sleeps, one who is ever watchful, ever present, even in the darkest hours of your life. As you close your eyes to rest, you can take solace in the knowledge that the God who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. This practice is a profound act of surrender, a moment where you release the weight of your day, placing your worries, your concerns, and your hopes into God's hands. It's not just your body that finds renewal in this surrender, but your very soul is rejuvenated. With each passing day, this simple act of prayer before bed strengthens your resolve and deepens your faith as you allow yourself to rest in the arms of a faithful God, trusting that He holds your future in His loving hands. As you pray before sleep, you may not realize how deeply this practice transforms your entire outlook on life. It is not just a way to close the day, but a way to reaffirm your faith. Each night, when you pause to reflect on the events that unfolded, you begin to see God's hand in the smallest of details. The phone call from a friend, the laughter shared with family, the quiet moments of peace amid chaos. These moments, which may have seemed insignificant in the rush of the day, come into sharper focus through the lens of prayer. This reflection acts as an anchor for your soul, a firm reminder that even amid hardship, God was there, guiding you through, providing for you, protecting you, and lifting you when you felt weak. It is a moment of quiet recognition that even on your most difficult days, you are never truly alone. In the words of Lamentations 3:22-23, we are reminded of a profound truth that resounds through every prayer we offer before sleep. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. This passage speaks not just to God's unchanging love, but to the constant renewal of His mercies. Each day His compassion is poured out afresh, and each night we are invited to remember and embrace that gift. As you offer your prayers before sleep, you are not only giving thanks for the mercies you've received that day, but also preparing your heart to face the challenges of tomorrow, confident that God's love and faithfulness will be there, unchanging and unwavering. Take, for example, the woman who transformed her perspective simply by deciding to pray before bed. For years, she found herself consumed by what had gone wrong, tasks left unfinished, conflicts unresolved, and the weight of her worries hanging over her like a storm cloud. But one night, she chose to shift her focus. She began to make prayer a sacred part of her evening routine, taking the time to reflect on the blessings, both big and small, that she had experienced that day. It was not always easy, especially on the toughest days, but as she prayed, she began to notice the small mercies, the smile of a stranger, the warm embrace of a loved one, the quiet peace that came after a storm. In time, this habit of looking for God's hand in her day began to change her heart. No longer did she go to bed with a heavy spirit. Instead, she found herself overwhelmed with gratitude and hope. She saw the goodness in her life even amid difficulty, and she recognized that God was working in ways she had once overlooked. Nightly prayer does not ask you to ignore the struggles and challenges that may have weighed on you throughout the day. Rather, it invites you to see those struggles through the lens of God's grace. It allows you to acknowledge your difficulties while also recognizing the presence of God in those very challenges. The psalmist in Psalm 77, 11-12, beautifully reflects this mindset. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. This act of remembering, of pausing to reflect on God's faithfulness in the past, not only strengthens your faith, but it also fills your heart with gratitude, reminding you that the same God who has been faithful before will continue to be faithful in all that lies ahead. Consider the man who, after years of feeling distant from his faith, decided to begin the simple practice of praying before bed. At first, he struggled to find the right words. His heart was heavy with doubt and his faith seemed small, but he persevered, offering up the simplest of prayers, thanking God for the air he breathed, the food he ate, and the people who loved him. Slowly, as he continued this practice night after night, his perspective began to shift. What had once seemed insignificant became a cause for deep gratitude. The simple fact that he was alive, that he had people who cared for him, began to spark a renewed sense of awe in his heart. His faith, which had once felt dry and distant, began to grow vibrant once again as he saw God's faithfulness woven through the very fabric of his life. God's faithfulness does not always appear in grand, life-altering miracles. More often than not, it is present in the quiet, everyday details, the conversation that lifted your spirits, the unexpected help from a friend, the strength to face another day. By taking the time to pray before bed, you are nurturing a spiritual sensitivity that helps you recognize these subtle displays of God's love and care. As Psalm 105:5 encourages us, remember the wonders he has done, his miracles and the judgments he pronounced. These acts of remembrance not only build our faith, but also fill our hearts with gratitude, for they remind us that the same God who worked wonders in the past is still at work in our lives today. Jesus, too, modeled the importance of remembering God's faithfulness in his prayers. When he faced the daunting task of feeding the 5,000, he didn't simply pray for the miracle to occur. No, he first gave thanks to God for the loaves and fishes, recognizing that God's provision, even before the miracle was performed, was a testament to his faithfulness. In John 6:11 we read, Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. This act of gratitude, offering thanks before the miracle, teaches us that just as Jesus trusted in God's provision, we too can trust in God's faithfulness even before the answer to our prayers is revealed. Nightly prayer also deepens our relationship with God. Each night offers a sacred opportunity to acknowledge his faithfulness and surrender our anxieties to him. As 1 Thessalonians 5:16 and 18 urges, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. These words call us to cultivate a constant spirit of gratitude and prayer, not just in the good times, but especially when we face difficulties. It is in these moments before sleep that we can release our burdens into God's hands, confident that he will carry them for us. A young man, weary from a season of failure, began a practice that transformed his outlook on life. Every night he would write down one thing he could thank God for, no matter how small. At first it was a struggle. The days felt long and filled with disappointment, but over time, he began to notice the small acts of kindness, a friend's encouraging word, a stranger's unexpected help. He found that by focusing on these small blessings, his faith grew stronger. He no longer saw his failures as defining moments, but as opportunities for growth, knowing that even in hardship, God's faithfulness was evident. When we pause each night to reflect on God's faithfulness, we reaffirm our trust in his character. Hebrews 13:8 reminds us, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. This truth anchors our souls, knowing that the same God who was with us in the past will remain with us unchanging through every season of life. Each prayer before sleep serves as a reminder that God is faithful in all things, and his presence will never depart from us. As you reflect on God's faithfulness each night, you are building a spiritual testimony that will carry you through the days ahead. In Joshua 4, when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, God instructed them to gather stones as a physical reminder of his faithfulness. These stones were not just markers of what God had done, they were reminders of his presence in every moment. Likewise, when you pause each night to reflect on his faithfulness, you are building your altar of remembrance, a place where you can draw strength from what God has done and trust that he will continue to do in the future. As you prepare for rest tonight, take a moment to reflect on how God has walked with you through the events of your day. Even when the weight of challenges seemed unbearable, he provided the strength you needed to carry on. Perhaps there were moments of joy that brought his love to life, filling your heart with a peace that only he can give. Maybe in the struggle, some lessons deepened your trust in his plan. All of these moments, both the bright and the heavy, serve as evidence of his unwavering faithfulness. By taking time to reflect, you are not just recounting the day's events. You are building your faith, grounding your soul in the certainty that God is with you, guiding you and holding you close. Every prayer before sleep strengthens your trust in His purpose for your life, allowing you to rest peacefully, knowing you are held in His care, in His peace. Allowing you to rest peacefully, knowing you are held in His care. As you close your eyes each night, remember that you never walk this journey alone. God's faithfulness is not a distant memory. It is a present promise, one that is renewed with each new day. Through prayer and reflection, you affirm this truth, and in doing so, you invite His presence into your heart. This practice transforms not only your view of the day just past, but also the way you face the dawn of tomorrow. As you surrender your concerns and take stock of His blessings, you allow your perspective to shift from one of anxiety to one of hope. With gratitude in your heart, you prepare yourself to walk in the peace and purpose that God has laid out for you. Gratitude becomes not just an expression of thanks, but a declaration of faith, a declaration that God is good, no matter the circumstances. Ending your day with a grateful heart has the power to transform your entire outlook. It does more than simply help you rest. It recalibrates your spirit, helping you see the blessings in every circumstance, whether difficult or joyful. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, Paul writes, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." This is not a simple suggestion. It is a profound call to cultivate a heart of thankfulness, not because every situation is easy or perfect, but because in every circumstance, God is with us. When you choose gratitude, you acknowledge that He is present even in the hardest of times, working through the challenges to refine you, teach you, and draw you closer to Him. Take, for example, the woman who changed the trajectory of her nights through the power of gratitude. For years, she ended each day consumed with frustration and regret, harping on the things she hadn't done, the arguments she had gotten into, the way the day had slipped through her fingers. This left her tossing and turning, unable to find peace. But one day, she made a choice. Each night before she closed her eyes, she would list 3 things she was thankful for, no matter how small. In the beginning, it felt forced. Her heart was heavy, and the blessings seemed few and far between. But over time, this simple practice began to open her eyes. She learned to find joy in the small moments, a kind word from a stranger, the warmth of a hug from a loved one, or even the simple strength to face the next day. As she offered thanks each night, her perspective shifted. Her nights grew quieter, and her mornings started with a renewed sense of hope and peace. Gratitude did not change the difficulties she faced, but it changed her ability to face them with strength and faith. In Romans 8:28, we are reminded of God's deep, unshakable promise. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Even in the most trying times, God is at work bringing about good in ways we may not fully understand. By thanking God before bed, you are declaring your trust in His perfect timing and His ultimate control over all things. Even when you can't see the bigger picture, you are acknowledging that He is sovereign and that His love for you will never fail. Consider the example of Jesus, who demonstrated the power of gratitude in His own life. When faced with the daunting task of feeding 5,000 people with only a few loaves and fishes, He did not immediately ask for a miracle. Instead, He first gave thanks to the Father for what He had, even though it seemed insufficient for the task at hand. In John 6:11, we read, Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. His act of thanksgiving came before the miracle, reminding us that gratitude is not contingent upon what we have, but on the God we serve. Jesus shows us that, even in the face of what seems impossible, thankfulness shifts our hearts and opens the door for God's miracles. When you pray with gratitude before bed, you are cultivating the ability to see your day through a lens of faith. Instead of dwelling on unmet expectations or missed opportunities, you look for the ways God's hand has been at work. Maybe it was an encouraging conversation with a friend, or perhaps an unexpected solution to a problem you thought had no resolution. Maybe it was simply the quiet strength to endure the challenges that life brought your way. These are the signs of God's faithfulness, and by thanking Him for them, you train your heart to recognize His presence in every area of your life. This spiritual practice shifts your focus and fills you with peace, knowing that God is working on your behalf in both the small and large moments of your life. A young man shared how this simple habit of gratitude transformed his outlook during a challenging season. For months he felt trapped in a job that left him feeling unfulfilled and resentful. He went to bed each night with a sense of bitterness and frustration, unable to shake the feeling of being stuck. But when he began to incorporate gratitude into his nightly prayers, something shifted. He stopped focusing on the negatives and started thanking God for the opportunities in his job, for the relationships he had formed, and for the lessons he was learning along the way. While his work situation didn't change overnight, his attitude did. He found that the more he thanked God, the more his heart opened to the blessings hidden even in difficult circumstances. His perspective shifted from one of dissatisfaction to one of expectation, and he began to walk through each day with more joy and hope. Psalm 104 invites us to enter God's presence with thanksgiving. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. This passage highlights not only the way we should approach God, but also the transformative power of gratitude. When you choose to thank God, you are not just acknowledging His goodness, you are entering into His very presence. This act of thankfulness transforms your relationship with Him, drawing you closer to His heart and allowing His peace to fill your soul. Gratitude also acts as a safeguard against discontentment and comparison. In a world that constantly urges us to want more, to strive for bigger and better, thankfulness becomes an act of spiritual resistance. Philippians 4:11 and 13 tells us, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Contentment is not something that comes naturally. It is something we cultivate, and gratitude is the key. By choosing to thank God for what you have, rather than what you lack, you protect your heart from the poison of comparison and dissatisfaction. A father shared how practicing gratitude transformed the dynamics in his family. For years, their home had been filled with tension, with arguments and frustrations running high. But one day he decided to gather his family each night to pray together, thanking God for the blessings they had experienced that day. At first, it was difficult. Everyone was used to focusing on the problems. But little by little, this new habit began to soften their heart. Arguments became less frequent, and their home was filled with more peace. As they closed each day with prayer and gratitude, they found themselves growing closer as a family, united in their thankfulness for the blessings they had, no matter how small. Gratitude also strengthens your faith and prepares you to face the future with hope. By reflecting on God's past faithfulness, you are building a foundation of trust that will carry you through whatever lies ahead. In Psalm 18:24, we are reminded, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This attitude of joy and gratitude is not based on our circumstances, but on our relationship with the one who holds all things in His hands. When you choose to end your day with gratitude, you are strengthening your faith, preparing your heart to embrace whatever the future holds, knowing that God's faithfulness will never waver. As you pray tonight, may your heart be filled with gratitude. Reflect on the blessings of the day, whether they came in the form of quiet moments, unexpected kindness, or the strength to persevere. Even on the hardest days, God's goodness is there, woven into every moment. By thanking Him, you are affirming His character and allowing your trust in Him to shape your heart, your faith, and your rest. This simple habit of praying before sleep holds more power than you might realize. It has the potential to not only how you close your day, but also how you begin the next. When you end your day with a grateful heart, you are positioning yourself to receive God's blessings more fully. A heart that is filled with gratitude opens the door for God's presence to enter deeply into your life. It isn't merely a spiritual act, it is a practice that reorients your entire perspective, shifting your heart from stress to peace, from worry to trust. When you close your eyes at night, you are preparing yourself spiritually for the new day ahead. This prayer is not just about letting go of the day you've lived through, but also about positioning yourself to walk confidently in the divine purpose God has for you tomorrow. It is an act of surrender, a peaceful acknowledgement that the night belongs to God and that He is working while you rest. In these quiet moments of prayer, when you lay down your burdens before Him, you are opening your heart to receive the work He desires to do in your life. It's not just about closing your eyes and drifting into sleep. It's about allowing God to renew your spirit, giving you the clarity and peace you need to face the future with faith and purpose. Jesus taught us to trust God's daily provision, and this principle extends to both the day that ends and the one that begins. Matthew 6:34 reminds us, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." This passage calls us to rest in the sovereignty of God, recognizing that His grace is more than sufficient for the challenges of each day. As you pray before sleep, you are surrendering your worries about tomorrow to Him, trusting that He will equip you to face the challenges ahead with strength and confidence. Consider the story of a woman who transformed the way she dealt with daily stress simply by adopting the practice of praying before bed. For years, her nights were consumed with anxious thoughts about the tasks she had to accomplish the next day, each pending project, each potential obstacle. These worries overwhelmed her, robbing her of the sleep she so desperately needed, leaving her drained when the morning came. But one day she chose to do something different. She decided to make prayer a priority before sleep, specifically praying over the day to come, surrendering her plans, and asking God for His direction. This simple action had a profound effect on her heart. Instead of falling into bed with anxiety, she learned to trust that God was already at work even while she slept. Nighttime prayer became her invitation to rest in His peace, knowing that the next day was already in His hands. In Proverbs 16:9, we are reminded that in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. This verse speaks to the reality that while we may make our plans, it is God who ultimately determines the path we walk. When you entrust your plans to Him before bed, you are not only acknowledging His control over your life, but also inviting His guidance into your decision. Jesus modeled this complete dependence on the Father, especially in moments of great importance. In Luke 6:12, we see that one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. Jesus sought God's wisdom and strength, especially before facing the challenges ahead. Likewise, when you choose to pray before bed, you are preparing yourself for the next day, aligning your heart with God's perfect will for your life. Spiritual preparation for the new day also includes seeking wisdom from God. James 1:05 offers us this promise: "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." What a beautiful reminder that we are not left to navigate the uncertainties of tomorrow on our own. God is always ready and willing to provide wisdom and guidance if only we ask. A man shared how nightly prayer helped him navigate a season of uncertainty in his professional life. After losing his job, each day was filled with difficult decisions and unanswered questions. But by committing to prayer each night, he began to seek God's wisdom for every step. Though the answers did not come immediately, the practice of surrendering his concerns to God brought him the peace and clarity he needed to move forward with confidence, trusting that God was guiding him, even when the path was unclear. Night prayer is also an act of surrender, a profound recognition that our strength is limited, but God's strength is limitless. Psalm 127:2 reminds us, In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. This verse serves as a reminder that our rest doesn't depend solely on what we accomplish or how much we do, but on our willingness to trust God with what we cannot control. When you pray before bed, you are saying, Lord, I've done all that I can. Now I trust you with what I cannot do. It's a moment of surrender where we acknowledge that God's strength is all we need to face the challenges of tomorrow. Spiritual preparation also involves asking God for protection and strength to face the trials that lie ahead. Ephesians 6:10-11 exhorts us, finally be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. This passage speaks to the necessity of walking in God's strength daily, not just in moments of battle. When you pray before bed, you are asking God to equip you with his power, to clothe you with his armor, so you can face tomorrow with courage and faith. A family shared how this nightly habit transformed their dynamics. For years, their home was filled with tension and stress, with every day ending in arguments and frustration. But one day, the father decided to gather his family together each night to pray, not only for the events of the day, but also for the challenges they would face the next day. They prayed for God's protection over their home, his guidance in their decisions, and his presence in every moment. Over time, this simple act of prayer began to change the atmosphere of their home. Arguments became less frequent, and their family grew stronger, united in their faith and their trust in God's provision. Nighttime prayer also prepares us to face the day with gratitude and joy. Instead of worrying about what might go wrong or what could go awry, we can begin our days with thanks, trusting that God has already prepared good works for us to walk in. Psalm 118, verse 24 reminds us, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. When you pray before bed, you are preparing to enter each new day with an attitude of gratitude. It's a declaration that no matter what challenges tomorrow may bring, you will rejoice because you know that God is already at work, weaving his purpose into every detail of your life. In Romans 12:02, we are encouraged, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect. Prayer at night is an opportunity to release the negative thoughts of the day, allowing God to renew your mind, filling you with his truth, and preparing you to walk in his will. Each night as you close your eyes, remember that you are in the hands of the God who not only knows your tomorrow, but has already prepared a perfect plan for you. Night prayer is more than a simple act of surrender. It is a spiritual preparation for walking in faith, knowing that God's faithfulness will never fail you. By surrendering your dreams, your worries, and your plans to him, you can rest assured that he is working in every detail. This time of prayer not only changes how you end your day, but also how you begin the next, with peace, purpose, and hope in your heart. One man began to feel a deep clarity about the steps he should take in his life. What initially seemed like an uncomfortable habit of prayer before bed soon became the anchor of his faith. Isaiah 15 reminds us that in repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. This passage reveals that stillness is not weakness. It is a place of strength. For it is in stillness that we hear God's voice more clearly. By praying before bed, you are creating that sacred space where God can speak, where his direction becomes clearer, and where his peace fills your heart. Nightly prayer is more than just a ritual before sleep. It serves as a pivotal practice that helps us discern God's will for our lives. Throughout the day, our minds can become cluttered with ideas, plans, and worries that cloud our spiritual vision. But when we approach God in the stillness of the night, we have the opportunity to bring all of these thoughts and concerns before him, asking for clarity. In the quiet moments before rest, we can ask God to reveal his guidance, preparing our hearts for what he has in store. When you close your eyes tonight, you are not simply preparing for sleep, but making room for God to speak into the deepest parts of your life, giving you clarity for the future ahead. Proverbs 3:5-6 provides us with a powerful invitation to trust in God with our whole hearts. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This act of trust, paired with a willingness to listen, is what opens the door for God to guide us, especially when we feel uncertain. A young man shared how his practice of nightly prayer transformed his decision-making. Faced with the option to move to another city for a new job, he was filled with doubt. Each night he asked God for direction and then waited quietly. At first he didn't hear anything, but over time he began to feel a deep sense of peace when thinking about staying. That peace, though unspoken, became the guiding force in his decision. Later, he realized that God was working during that time of waiting, gently leading him toward the right path. Stillness is a powerful tool for discerning God's voice amid life's distractions. In John 10:27, Jesus promises, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." As children of God, we are given the ability to hear His voice, but only when we are willing to stop and listen. Nightly prayer, combined with silence, tunes our spiritual ears, allowing us to hear His guidance in every area of our lives. A married couple shared how their nightly practice of prayer strengthened both their relationship with God and with each other. Each night after praying together, they would sit in silence for a few moments, asking God to speak to them about His will for their family. This practice didn't just offer them direction for important decisions, it also unified them in their faith and purpose, helping them grow closer to one another and God. Night prayer, when combined with moments of silence, not only brings us closer to God, but also transforms the way we see our circumstances. It helps us view life from God's perspective, reminding us that His plan is always greater and more perfect than our own. Isaiah 55:8 teaches us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." In those quiet moments of prayer, we surrender our limited understanding and allow God to reveal the grander picture He has prepared for us. Even when we cannot make sense of the situation, we trust that He is working in ways that we may not yet comprehend. As the day comes to a close, remember that God is waiting for you in the stillness. You don't need to have all the answers or elaborate words to speak. All He desires is a heart that is open and willing to listen. Night prayer is not just about closing the day. It is an invitation to commune with the Creator, to draw nearer to His presence, and to allow His voice to gently transform your heart. When you pray before bed, you make space for God to speak truth and peace into your life, guiding you into the new day with confidence. Each time you kneel in prayer, you are strengthening the most important relationship in your life, the one with your Creator. Nightly prayer is not just a spiritual practice, but an intimate act that nourishes your soul, deepens your connection with God, and reaffirms that no matter what happens in your life, you are securely held in His hands. Revelation 3:20 offers a beautiful promise. "Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me." This invitation reflects God's desire for intimacy with each of us, and when we pray before bed, we respond to that invitation, saying, "Lord, here I am. I open my heart to you." A woman shared how this nightly habit transformed her spiritual life. Although she had been a believer for years, she felt her relationship with God was shallow, more of a Sunday ritual and quick prayers throughout the day. But when she started dedicating her nights to intentional, focused prayer, everything shifted. She no longer viewed prayer as a task, but as a refuge, a time to experience God's presence more deeply. As she opened her heart to God in the stillness, she began to feel His closeness in ways she never had before. This practice not only deepened her faith, but also changed how she approached each day, knowing that she wasn't alone and that God was walking with her. Nightly prayer reminds us that God is more than just a provider or a guide. He is our loving Father who desires a close personal relationship with us. Psalm 139, 1 through 3 beautifully captures this intimacy. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. God is deeply interested in every detail of our lives, and nightly prayer is an opportunity to experience that level of connection. Jesus modeled this kind of intimacy with the Father in John 17:01, verses 23-03. His prayer reveals a deep longing for us to experience the same unity with God that he shared. When we pray before bed, we answer this call, allowing our relationship with God to grow in trust, love, and closeness. A young man shared how this practice changed his perspective on prayer. Previously, he had seen prayer as a checkbox, something he did out of obligation. But when he started dedicating his nights to genuine conversation with God, he realized that prayer wasn't just about saying words. It was about encountering the living God. In those moments, he felt he could be completely honest, laying out his struggles and joys, and hearing God speak through his word. The peace that filled his heart during those times was transformative, reshaping how he saw prayer and deepening his trust in God. Praying before bed also builds our trust in God because it reminds us that he is faithful and dependable regardless of our circumstances. 2 Timothy 2:13 reassures us, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot disown himself. Even when we falter, God remains constant, and by spending time with him each night, we strengthen our faith and grow in our trust in his love and care. A man, after enduring a series of personal and professional failures, found in nightly prayer the strength he needed to keep moving forward. Each night, he poured out his heart to God, confessing his doubts, but also reminding himself that God was still at work in his life, even when the results weren't immediately visible. Nightly prayer is also an act of worship, a time to recognize and celebrate God's greatness and goodness. Psalm 29:01 calls us, ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. This time is not just about asking for things or seeking solutions to problems. It is an opportunity to praise God for who he is and all that he has done. This act of worship not only glorifies God, but also fills our hearts with awe and gratitude, reminding us of his unwavering love. A family shared how this practice of nightly prayer strengthened their relationship with God and with each other. Every night they would gather together to pray, beginning with words of praise and gratitude. Over time, this practice not only reminded them of God's faithfulness, but also brought them closer together as a family, helping them keep God at the center of their home. In Psalm 63, 6 through 8, David shares how nightly prayer brought him joy and strength. On my bed, I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night. Because you are my help, I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. This passage reveals that prayer before sleep is not just a spiritual act. It is also a source of comfort and renewal. When you choose to dedicate this time to God, you are developing a habit that impacts every aspect of your life, nurturing a deeper connection with him. By beginning and ending each day in prayer, you are nurturing a relationship with God that sustains you in times of difficulty and fills you with joy in times of abundance. John 15:05 invites us to remain connected to God. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Nightly prayer is a powerful way to stay connected to God, to remain in his presence, and to bear the fruit of his Spirit in your life. As you close your eyes tonight, remember that every prayer you offer, And every thought you surrender is a step closer to a deeper, more intimate relationship with God. This habit of nightly prayer will not only transform your days, but also your entire life. Through this intimate connection with the God who never fails, you will find peace, purpose, and the strength to face whatever comes your way. Here are some valuable lessons. Surrendering your worries to God. Praying before sleep offers an opportunity to surrender your anxieties, allowing you to rest in God's peace and trust that He is in control. Spiritual restoration. Prayer before bed is not only about physical rest, but also about spiritual renewal, reminding you that God's presence provides safety, peace, and emotional restoration. Trusting God's care. By praying before sleep, you show trust in God's ability to bear your burdens and care for you more effectively than your strength. Gratitude and perspective. Ending your day with gratitude transforms your attitude, helping you see God's faithfulness and embrace a spirit of contentment, no matter the circumstances. Clarity and purpose. Nightly prayer helps to refocus your mind and heart, preparing you to face the next day with peace and direction, guided by God's wisdom and love. A stronger relationship with God. Praying before bed deepens your connection with God, allowing you to see His hand in your life and strengthening your faith. Surrender and protection. Recognizing that God's strength is greater than our own, prayer before sleep becomes an act of surrender, asking for His protection and guidance for the days ahead. What have you learned so far? Please share one thing you've learned that you will practice in your life. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.